Hi, everyone. In this next session, we have Jaime Schmidt with us. She's the founder of Schmidt's Naturals, which she founded in her kitchen in 2010. Her new book, Supermaker, came out this fall, and it's a wonderful read about her entrepreneurial journey, founding her company with lots of lessons for entrepreneurs and innovators of all kinds, as well as personal stories that really show you a lot of insight and emotion around a journey like this that started way back in 2010. Jaime actually sold the company to Unilever in 2017, and now she is an investor and advisor and really someone who's giving a ton back to the entrepreneurial community all over the US. So welcome, Jaime. I'm excited to chat about your book.
Hi, Debbie. Thanks for having me.
Of course, it's so great to see you. You must be really busy these days on your virtual book tour. Hope it's going well.
Yeah, it's been great. Definitely, different from the in-person events, but I'm really enjoying it. It's really opened up a lot of opportunity actually to pursue additional events that I hadn't considered before COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that's true. Um, so the book is amazing. I've read it and I really loved it, and I found a lot for myself in it, and I'm sure other entrepreneurs are as well. But
Thanks.
tell me a little bit about, from your perspective, why did you write the book, and what do you hope people get from it?
Mhm. First, I had never imagined writing a book. It wasn't something in my thinking ever until I sold the business, and I realized I had a lot of information to share and a lot of experiences I had gone through, lessons learned that I knew would be helpful to other entrepreneurs. One of my biggest goals in writing the book was really to put out the message that entrepreneurship is within reach. I don't think it's for a certain type of person. I think it's attainable for everybody, and that was really important for me in writing this. And so I structured the book in a way, that really lays out kind of everything building up to me starting my business. So I know a lot of people can really identify with that soul searching journey, that process that we go through to really figure out what we want to do with our lives. So I get a bit into that, but then I really go deep into, founding the business, growing it, scaling it, and just all the really kind of practical things that come up in doing so. And so my goal there is to really, I say it's not about putting out a playbook and saying you have to grow your business this way. It's more, here's how I grew my business. These are the things I learned. These are the challenges that I went through. And here's, some takeaways that hopefully you can implement into your business. And so the feedback I've been getting is really great. I hear from people who say the story is really relatable. It's inspired them, to give them the confidence to grow their business. And so I'm really excited with the way things have been going since launching a few weeks ago.
That's great. In reading one of the reviews of the book, I kind of chuckled because the reviewer said it's equal parts memoir, business book, and thriller. So your journey was, pretty exciting.
I love that.
All along the way. And I really did love how you wove in so many personal stories, and, different things that you went through just, emotionally and thinking about your future as you were building this business. So as you look at the book and you sort of see your journey written out like this, what do you look back on as your favorite part of it? And what do you think was your least favorite part of it?
I think just seeing how much I developed on a personal level as a businesswoman, going back 10 years ago to when I started the business, I was, a bit of a different person. And the business changed me. Everything that I had gone through just really has kind of shaped me into a new person, just like everything else in life, right? So that's been really fun, is just to go back to those first days of the inspiration behind starting the business, and just like how kind of naive I was and everything that I was forced to learn. I actually had dug deep into some of the old emails and writing this book to see, some of the early conversations I had had, and it was just really, really cool to see. One thing that I was really impressed with was my just tenacity and persistence. And so that was really kind of fun to see that part of me come out. And then if I think about least favorite part, I don't know that I have one. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's things that, I probably would have done differently in building the business if I had a book like this to refer to. And
And
maybe
you didn't have a business background at all, right?
no, I mean, I have a degree. I got a I got a BA in business from Michigan State University, and then a master's in sociology, which were helpful. There are
Yeah.
definitely some things learned there. But I don't think any schooling can really prepare anybody for, for really what it takes to jump in and build a business. And that's one thing that's important, that I want people to understand too, is that you don't need a certain type of background. You can learn things as you go. You don't always know what you need to learn right away, but as you're building, it'll become clear. Every step of the way, there's something new that you'll have to learn, and you just have to jump in and figure it out.
Right, right. I love how you talk about the tenacity, though, that like you even surprised yourself that you didn't know you had that kind of tenacity.
Yeah. I think when you believe in something so much and, it just comes naturally. Because I hadn't really considered myself that, type of, I guess, aggressive person either. But I believed in the brand so much and the product, and I felt like people needed it. And so that gave me the confidence to just push forward. And
Mm-hmm. Besides tenacity and passion for the product, you talk a lot about excellence as a core value. How did excellence play into building your company and creating your products for the world?
Yeah, when I started Schmidt's, I'd spent a lot of time trying to perfect my product. I was at farmers markets, so I would meet with customers who would give feedback, and that helped me build and create the product to their liking. But I think when I think about excellence, it really sometimes just means just jumping in and trusting that it'll get better as you go, and that if you think something's perfect or excellent, you might be surprised, right? You'll get feedback from people that surprises you, that about your product that you hadn't considered. So I think it's more about values really too, and like understanding what you stand for as a brand and as an entrepreneur, and letting that guide you as you build.
Mm-hmm.
So just really, it's hard as you get bigger because there are a lot of challenges that come up, and you're really faced with big decisions every day.
Right.
So having the values to fall back on and knowing what you stand for, is going to be key. I think that's the one grounding thing that every entrepreneur needs to know.
Yeah. So to feel really secure in those values as you embark on the journey,
Right. Yeah.
sort of touch back to them at times to make sure that you're still being true to that.
And also on that too, not being overly rigid, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs start out and they say, okay, I have this concrete set of like values or things that are important to me, and this is what we stand for, but it might change, and that's okay. Just allowing it to flex, but falling back on what's most important to you.
Do you have an example of that where you really had to kind of flex and maybe potentially relook at something that you were so certain about at the beginning? And
Yeah, I do. When I started making the deodorant, I was packaging in glass jars. It was really important to me to offer something not only that looked beautiful and was different, but was sustainable. So that's why I loved the glass. But it became clear pretty early on that customers wanted a more traditional approach to putting on their deodorant. With the jars, you had to literally rub the product in your underarms with your hands, and not everybody was willing to do that. And so I knew to really grow the business, I had to reach that customer base that wanted a traditional plastic stick. So in doing that, it was a big decision for me, but I was able to move forward in confidence because I knew that, for one, I could source sticks that had been made with recycled plastics or use sticks that could be recycled. And also I could implement a recycling club for my jars, which was really cool. So I put together a process or a program where customers could send back 5 jars of used deodorant and then get a free one. So that was a nice way to keep the sustainability aspect at the forefront too.
That's a great example. So
Yeah.
like you sort of were going down one path and you thought of new options that actually helped you grow the business even more. So sometimes it can really help you to kind of look at the broader picture and sort of say, how important is this? If it is really important, is there another way to do it where I can still accomplish the mission of what I'm trying to get to?
Right.
Yeah, I love that.
Thanks.
Well, so at Babson, we recently have done a bunch of research on family entrepreneurship, and it really talks about how the majority of the entrepreneurship around the world is actually family entrepreneurship. And it's family powered, whether it's child parent or husband and wife or siblings or couples. And so you founded Schmidt's in your kitchen with your baby by your side and your husband by your side. And then your husband has really joined you working on the business very early on. So I'm curious to know what it was like to work with your husband, and was there anything about working on a startup together that surprised you?
Well, we met at a job. So, that's always been a key part of our relationship. It's just, I wouldn't say key, but it's always been like I guess an interesting point about our relationship is that we've always worked together. So I think that helped in some ways, that we already had been used to, that type of dynamic. But it was definitely challenging and interesting and fun. I'd say you have to have ground rules and understandings about each other, and what is what's most important in maintaining those energies throughout your relationship. And so, for example, do we want to talk about work at dinner, right? And that's kind of cliche, but it's like, where do we set the boundaries? What are we willing to flex on? But what I think my favorite thing about it is like having my husband next to me to celebrate the victories, right? Because when you're an entrepreneur, every victory is just so exciting, and it's really cool to really experience it together. But at the same time, those setbacks too can be really difficult to power through. And so I think one thing that helped us is, if one person is really kind of struggling and needs extra support, then the other one has to step up and be the strong one. And so it's really kind of a balance always.
Yeah, that's a great point. And there's nobody that you trust more than your husband to have your back, right?
Yeah.
That's so important too. Well, so a piece of advice you give in the book that I really loved is, you said, pay attention to what gives you joy. And for entrepreneurs, you felt like this was a really important thing for them to understand in trying to decide what path they want to go down. So what do you think that means, and how do you do it? How do you listen to what gives you joy?
Yeah. Before starting Schmidt's, I had quite a career journey. I had really been soul searching, I guess, and trying to find, work that satisfied me for a long time. And I didn't figure it out until founding Schmidt's. I was 31, so not very early in my career. And so for me, it was really just this unwillingness to settle. I didn't know what I wanted to be doing, but I knew what I didn't want to be doing. And that was just always like one step closer to figuring it out. And so, I was willing to get my hands dirty and try a lot of different things. And always just having this mentality of like, I'm not going to settle until it feels right. And I truly believe that once you find it, you'll know, because with me, I began formulating personal care products and just making things, and it felt like nothing had ever felt before. I really was actually loving the work. And so that was just multiplied when I started getting out in the community and talking to customers. And so I guess, by the word joy, it just means like, true love for the work that you're doing.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I really like that piece of advice, and that's something I'm going to share with other entrepreneurs that I meet along the way, because I think it's important to just be aware of it. Like, find when you're in flow, and when you're just feeling great about what you're doing, and
and it doesn't always mean quitting your job and just running off and trying to figure things out. I mean, you can still work. We have to make money, but then just even explore side hobbies, and just, it's not always a career change. Sometimes it's just finding a little passion project that we're excited about. And for me, that's kind of what I thought in the beginning, was like, okay, I might not love my job, but it's, it's paying the bills. And maybe what I need is just a little hobby, to keep me happy. And that's how Schmidt started. But then, it grew into this huge business, and I didn't anticipate that in the earliest years.
Yeah. Amazing. So you're no longer at Schmidt's since Unilever owns it, and you're so busy. You're doing so much for the maker community and for the entrepreneurship community. It's incredibly amazing how much time you're spending helping others now. And one of the things I thought was really interesting was this new investment fund called Color that you've started. And can you tell me a little bit about that and how it will work? And why was it important to you to really work on something specifically for underrepresented founders?
Yeah, so even though I'm still working with Schmidt's, I do have a lot of other projects, and you mentioned Color as one of them. That's an investment fund that I started along with my husband, Chris. After building the business, we both walked away with a lot of experience and insights that we were excited to put into other businesses and to support other founders. And we also recognized there was a real opportunity in underrepresented communities where funding is just short. I mean, there's not enough capital in the hands of women and people of color. So we started with, that at the forefront of our mission really is to support these founders. And there's just so much incredible opportunity that's overlooked. And so this was, I guess, a couple years ago, we started the fund. And we are really passionate about consumer products. That's where our experience is, and that's where we can really have the most impact. Also, kind of moving a bit into some tech, exploring different opportunities there, and also really passionate about just commerce in general and the way people buy things. So that's been really fun, and just a way for us to stay relevant and to be helpful to the greater community. We do find ourselves talking people out of investment often. Not your typical investment.
That's great.
Yeah, because I bootstrapped Schmidt's. I never raised money from a VC, and so I know that it's possible. And so there are times when we're approached by founders thinking they need the money, but they maybe don't. And so we'll find ourselves talking people out of it and say, let's consider this approach, or come back in a year, after you spent some time bootstrapping.
Yeah, I think that's smart. It's really helpful advice. Well, so another project that I thought was really cool that you're working on is the Entrepreneurial Dream Project. Mm-hmm. And you got an incredible cast of mentors involved in this program. So tell me a little bit about the program. Mm-hmm. And how did you get all those amazing entrepreneurs to sign on and do this? And then let's talk a little bit about mentorship. So
I started the Entrepreneurial Dream Project as part of the media company Supermaker, which I also founded with my husband, Chris. And this was really in response to COVID-19 and the impact that it was having on new businesses. So our goal there was to keep the entrepreneurial dream alive. This was back in March when, it was just a very scary time. And it's hard enough building a business in normal conditions. And we just wanted to make sure that founders felt supported and moving forward. So there were two ways we did that through this program. One was through a monetary grant. We gave away $50,000 to two different founders who are building. And then in addition to that, we built up a mentor network of about 50 mentors. As you mentioned, we had some pretty big names in there. We had Mark Cuban, Rebecca Minkoff, and just a bunch of other really seasoned operators and entrepreneurs. You asked how we gathered so many incredible people really reaching out. Everybody wanted to help. It wasn't hard to build up this great mentor network. We simply cold emailed some people and heard.
So these weren't people that you just hang out with normally.
Some we had connections to for sure. Being in the industry, there were definitely friends that we could tap into. But some, like Mark Cuban, for example, we sent a cold email and he wrote back right away and said, "Yeah, I'll be in and I'll be part of this." And so it was really cool to see people just so willing to help.
Yeah.
And so that program's been great. We've been pairing up 10 different companies with this pool of mentors. So each company gets about 3 different mentors that they rotate through just to help with whatever they need right now with their business.
And how long do you expect it to keep going?
Each one committed to a few sessions, and then some of the relationships will continue to build. And it's just an individual basis. So I know some are going beyond the program because they like the relationship and they want to continue to have impact and help. So it's really individualized.
Nice. Well, so obviously, mentorship must have been very important to you and your journey. In your Entrepreneur's Dream Project, I think it's really amazing that you brought together this great cast of mentors. Can you talk a little bit about how mentorship affected you in your journey, or whether you had any mentors that were helpful to you?
In building Schmidt's, my mentor group was really my peer group. I found support in other entrepreneurs, the community of makers that I was surrounded by. But in scaling, I think it definitely would have been helpful to have that 1 or 2 mentor that I could just go to for things that I needed support with. And I just didn't take the time to step away from the work. I was so caught up operationally with what was right in front of me, but I definitely see there could have been value there in partnering with at least one mentor.
Yeah, so that's great. So now you're kind of bringing that learning to others and helping them get access to some amazing people that can help them. That's phenomenal. So talk a little bit about sort of post Unilever. I know that you're involved with the company on a different level. How's that relationship working? How do you feel about this new role? Do you think you'll start another company someday based on this experience?
I've been very happy with the relationship with Unilever. It was a clear win for me when we partnered. I knew that we had a lot of the same values, that Schmidt's could really expand in their hands. And 3 years later, I'm happy to say, that we have. I'll always be connected to the brand. It's my baby. My name is on it. You asked if I would start another company. My investment fund Color takes a lot of my time. I have my media company Supermaker and my book. There's other projects that I'm looking at, but starting an actual consumer products company again, I don't know if I have it in me, but we'll see. I'm most excited about, really supporting other brands and just seeing other founders, develop. And so that's where I'm putting most of my energy now.
Wonderful. So, any last piece of advice for people who are like you right now, but working in their kitchen to build the next great consumer packaged goods brand?
I'd say enjoy every step of the way. I heard from a founder recently who was feeling discouraged because she was still working in her kitchen and, I hadn't moved out into a warehouse or production space. And I told her, just savor these moments because they're just so special. And I always tell people, take too many photos, write things down, and one day you'll look back and say, wow, I've come a long way. So yeah, just don't look too far ahead and really just tackle what's right in front of you.
Yeah, and catalog the journey so you can look back on it and really remember it. Because it probably feels like a blur now to you.
Yeah, and all those days were just so special in their own way.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. So thank you, Jaime. It was wonderful to have you with us today. It was great to hear your story. I highly recommend the book, Supermaker. It's wonderful. It is definitely equal parts memoir, thriller, and business book. Lots for people to learn, but put in such a simple way and a really readable way. So thank you for making that too and putting it out into the world.
Yes, my pleasure.